I found out that my self-centered sister confessed to making up stories about my fiancé cheating on me just to mess up our wedding. Hey, it's Mabel here, 28 years old, and I really need some advice from you all about my older sister, Diana, who's 30. Today was supposed to be my wedding day, May 14th. But things went haywire, and one of the reasons was my sister lying about my fiancé cheating with her. Crazy, huh? Hard to believe a sister would do that to her own family, right? Before you jump to conclusions, let me tell you a bit about Diana. She's like the family troublemaker. Growing up, I always heard my parents, especially my mom, complain about her. Sometimes it was about her grades, other times about how she dressed, and so on. Being the older one, she always felt entitled. Even as kids, she made the rules in the house, claiming dibs on everything. Growing up, I got used to playing with Diana's toys and borrowing her clothes, but even as an adult, she stayed pretty self-centered. Diana wasn't great in school. She dropped out halfway through. She had a thing for money, so she had a bunch of boyfriends who spoiled her with expensive stuff. Diana struggled to figure out what she wanted to do with her life. I didn't blame her for being unsure because not everyone knows what they want to do. Our parents tried to help her figure it out, but she saw it as them comparing us. At first, I thought our parents were too hard on her. I thought she just needed some love and direction. But looking at Diana now, I think maybe they were right. On the other hand, I was always pretty easygoing. My mom says I was an okay student, but I loved fashion. I'd spend hours online looking at designs and trying to make my own clothes. My dad noticed my interest and encouraged me to do something with it. So in my senior year, I applied to fashion school, and that's how my career began. I moved out and started living on my own after my last year of college. I moved from Seattle to New York City, the Big Apple, to meet new people and find a fresh environment. After I moved, my parents kept pressuring my sister, Diana, to take life seriously. Fed up with our mom's nagging, Diana left home and showed up at my place. It was a shock when I woke up one morning and found her standing at my door with her stuff. Diana is my older sister, and I can't abandon my family when they need me. I guess I was the only one who thought family was important. Diana didn't try to find a job or pursue any goals. Instead, she spent all day at home watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians reruns. At night, she went out clubbing or restaurant hopping with her new, flashy friends. It was ridiculous. I tried to gently tell her that she needed to be financially independent and stop expecting me to always provide for her. I wasn't her only source of money. Her rich on and off boyfriend Frederick also helped her out. They have a complicated relationship. Initially, I thought she moved in with me to escape our parents, but the real reason was Frederick. His father's company was opening a new outlet in New York, so he moved to manage it. Of course, my pushover sister couldn't leave him alone, so she followed him. But Frederick was living in his company's quarters, where Diana couldn't stay or else Frederick would get in trouble with his father. So she had no choice but to show up at my door. She's been freeloading at my place for over 2 years now. The real issue, though, is my fiancé Lucas. I've always felt unlucky in love, probably because I've faced so much heartbreak. In high school, my boyfriend used me for popularity and never took me seriously. My college boyfriend wasn't any better. He cheated on me with other women. I crave love, especially after seeing the support and unconditional love my parents had. In New York, everywhere I looked, I saw happy couples enjoying each other's company. But for me, I was always alone. Amidst all this, I met Lucas Den, a 30-year-old man. He was the sweetest and most beautiful of them all, a smart artist. I was immediately drawn to his honest eyes. We maintained eye contact for a while, hoping one of us would smile. It wasn't my first time meeting a handsome guy. In New York, there were plenty of them. But I wasn't interested in most of them because they only wanted one thing. Lucas and I started talking about our siblings before he walked up to me. I was going through a grocery list that Diana had written, which included all sorts of fancy items that I could barely pronounce. Lucas saw me talking to myself and laughed. He told me he was in a similar situation with his younger sister, Ellie, who was 16 and in high school. He was shopping for her, and I initially thought it was for a girlfriend. Lucas ended up helping me with the rest of my grocery shopping as we chatted about how tough adulthood can be. He even offered to pay for my items, but I couldn't accept. I'm just too independent for that. Lucas also shared that his sister Ellie had suffered an assault last year, which made her afraid to be in public. To help her feel safe, he let her live with him instead of their parents. I was impressed by how caring he was. We had so much in common, both of us acting like parents to our siblings. That's where our romance began. I had almost forgotten how wonderful it felt to be truly loved. Lucas was that kind of person for me. We started dating on May 23rd last year, and it was the easiest relationship I ever had. However, Diana had a hard time getting along with Lucas. She would make negative comments about him all the time. Lucas tried to be nice by getting her favorite chocolate and even a designer bag, knowing she loved fancy things. But Diana just didn't care. Eventually, I confronted Diana about her disrespectful behavior toward Lucas. She explained that she was worried about losing me to him and felt insecure about how her life would change if I got more serious with Lucas. She knew we were gradually getting more serious. I assured her that I loved her dearly and promised I would never abandon her. I thought my sister would share the same love and respect for me, but I was wrong. A few months later, Lucas proposed to me. I said yes, 1,000,000 times yes. We got engaged, and my best friend Bonnie, who knew me so well, took on the role of wedding planner. Everyone was happy for me, even my mom, who used to joke that I would end up with a bunch of cats. I had found the right one. But little did I know, the happiness wouldn't last. Diana had come up with a plan to break off my engagement. One day I arrived at Lucas' apartment, ready to go cake tasting with Bonnie, but I walked into a shocking scene. Lucas had his hands all over my sister, seemingly trying to kiss her while Diana was trying to push him away. She looked distraught and then slapped him in the face. Lucas appeared to be drunk or woozy. Through her tears, Diana explained that she had wanted to make amends with Lucas for her behavior during a family dinner. But instead, Lucas had been making advances toward her. She said she wanted him to stop and respect our relationship. Diana then showed me handwritten letters that Lucas had sent her. I read one of them, and it was filled with disturbing content. Lucas had written about his fantasies involving her body and his desperate desire to sleep with her. One part read, "I love you with all of my heart. If you could only see that I want your body next to mine. I hope that marrying your sister will give way for our romance to build up. God, I want that body." I believed Diana had no reason to lie. Furious, I stormed out of the apartment. Bonnie advised me to reconsider breaking up and to listen to Lucas once he sobered up. I agreed. I needed to hear his side of the story. Lucas showed up at the house after I ignored his messages and calls. The first thing I did was slap him. Then I threw the letters Diana had shown me in his face. He looked shocked and denied ever writing or sending those letters. He explained that Diana had unexpectedly come to his apartment with a bottle of wine and some dessert, which he couldn't recall. She had told him she wanted to mend their relationship since we were getting married, and this was her gesture for a new start. Lucas agreed, and they both drank from the wine bottle. He said the wine tasted off, and he realized something was wrong with the first sip. However, Diana insisted it was a special homemade wine from a friend, so Lucas drank it. He said after one glass he didn't remember much, except hazy memories of Diana urging him to finish the bottle and touching him inappropriately. He claimed he tried to stop her but felt too weak and disoriented. Lucas said he almost passed out and didn't remember what happened next. I rolled my eyes and told Lucas I wasn't falling for his so-called victim story. He pleaded for me to reconsider, but I was done. Diana's plan had worked, and I broke off my engagement with him. Lucas made one last plea, saying my sister was the most important part of my life, but I was too hurt to listen. Despite the breakup, Lucas continued to call and text, insisting he had nothing to do with Diana. I just wanted to heal, but it was impossible with everyone asking what had happened between us. I could have easily said Lucas was using me to get to my sister, but I wasn't the type to tarnish someone's image. I believed society would figure out the truth on its own. Eventually, Lucas stopped reaching out, and I heard he had taken a trip to clear his head. A part of me wished he would beg me to forget everything, but I knew it wasn't possible. I wasn't the type to give second chances anymore. A few weeks later, Diana started facing her own troubles with her boyfriend Frederick. Despite their on and off relationship, Diana was deeply in love with him, even though she tried to hook up with other people or meet new ones. But Frederick was always the one for her, despite his flaws. They were the kind of couple that could go from yelling and throwing things to making out passionately. It was a volatile relationship, but I was used to it by then. One night, while I was trying to cope with my heartbreak by drinking with Bonnie, we overheard Diana arguing with Frederick. She was demanding a ring on her finger, but Frederick refused, saying he wasn't ready for marriage and wouldn't be pressured into it. Diana expressed her frustration, saying she was tired of living with me and wanted her own house, which meant her husband's house. Basically, the conversation went like this. During their argument, Frederick exclaimed, "I thought you loved your sister." Diana replied, "Of course I do." Frederick retorted, "Such love that you ruined her chances of happiness." I was intrigued by Frederick's words and wanted to come out and ask him what he meant. But Bonnie signaled for me to stay hidden and listen. Diana responded to Frederick, saying he could never make her happy anyway. She became more agitated, raising her voice. "I don't care if he wanted to give her the world. I should be the one getting married first. I'm old enough and deserve it. Just because she has a house and a career doesn't mean she should have something I can't." Like, what is wrong with this girl? I felt the need to step in. It seemed like my sister held some resentment towards me. Where did all this anger come from? Despite Bonnie's efforts to stop me, I moved closer and entered the room. Frederick looked angry, and my sister tried to fake a smile. Frederick looked at Diana, waiting for her to explain. At first, Diana seemed scared, then she suddenly became furious and selfish, like a jealous monster had taken over her. That's when I became sure that something was not right. I looked at Diana, who had a frown but stayed silent. Frederick revealed the truth. Diana had lied about Lucas and those letters. I was furious, especially when Frederick said he paid someone to fake Lucas's handwriting and write those letters. Diana attacked Frederick right away, but he pushed her back and explained how Diana begged him to help her end my engagement. Normally, I would have tried to calm them down, but this time, I didn't care. Living a lie, I realized my sister wasn't the angel I thought she was. I had sacrificed my love for her. I bombarded her with questions, almost getting physical. She admitted she didn't care about me or my life, and had only used me because she couldn't figure out her own life. I kicked them both out of my house. Frederick left right away, but my sister refused to leave, acting like a spoiled princess. The neighbors heard our yelling and were peeking out of their windows. To avoid more trouble, Bonnie took me to her place a few blocks away. It's been a week now. I've cried a lot at Bonnie's house. Bonnie got my essentials from my place and convinced me to stay with her for a while. She's working from home to be with me. I'm not sure if my sister has left yet, but honestly, I don't have the energy to deal with her. Right now, I'm more worried about how to fix things with Lucas after what I did. I don't think a simple apology will be enough. Any advice would be really helpful. Update 1. Guess what, everyone? Today was one of those days when I wished I could just lose it and react strongly. You know how they say people feel remorseful about what they've done? Well, in Diana's case, that's a lie. She didn't care at all about how I felt. Bonnie had a feeling Diana had bad intentions towards me, but didn't say anything outright because of the strong sisterly love I had for her. It hurt knowing I was the only one feeling that way. After finding out about the betrayal, my first instinct was to reach out to Lucas. But guess what? Bad luck struck again. Lucas was with another woman. Story of heartbreak and betrayal. After spotting Lucas with his ex, who he had a complicated history with, I poured out everything about my sister's deceit and begged for forgiveness. Lucas grasped the situation but asked for space from me. Rumors spread, branding him as someone playing the Whale sisters, causing a lot of judgment in town. He needed time to heal, and although I wasn't sure what that meant, I sensed he would move on positively. Now I'm back to being single. I may come off as vengeful, but I'm not bothered. I want Diana to experience the pain I went through. Even though she left the house upon my return from Bonnie's, I'm determined to make her suffer. Update 2. Okay, I guess I have to start this with an apology. I've been going through a lot. Last month was the day I was supposed to get married to Lucas, who is now seeking healing. For days I've been wallowing in my sadness. I had ignored calls from my workers, Bonnie, and everyone. My pillows were constantly tear-soaked. And Diana? Oh, Diana. She had barged into my apartment last week, asking for money for her shopping spree. A shopping spree while my life was practically ruined. Where was her humanity? She said that whatever money she had saved from the pocket money I gave her, she had paid for her motel rent, and now she wanted money for shopping and other things. She maintained that crazy entitlement. She needed to be taught a lesson. I had thought about a million ways to pay my sister for her wickedness. Nothing serious came to mind. Then I thought about one thing: money. Money was what went around in Diana's world. That's why she wanted to get married. She wanted to have the best clothes and styles in the world. She didn't care if the world was ending. The money in her account was all that was important. So I decided to cut her off. Her reaction was something else. She screamed like a child, throwing a tantrum. But Diana didn't give up. She even tried to access money from my bank account to cash a check. I acted fast and called the bank to stop her from getting any money. Diana didn't beg for the first time. She held onto her pride. I wanted to make her understand what it felt like to be in need. She claimed the money was for something important, saying she had broken up with Frederick and had no one else to turn to but me. It hurt me deeply that my own older sister, who should have supported and cared for me, had ruined my life just to get married first. She stormed out of the house, furious. A week later, she came back, much calmer this time, and begged me for help. She said she was desperate for money and even tried to reconcile with Frederick. But Frederick had moved on and found love elsewhere. I wanted her to feel some of the pain I had felt. Diana begged him to reconsider and think about the years they had spent together, but he left her for good. It wasn't satisfying to see Diana in pain, but I couldn't deny that it felt like karma. She begged for my help, something I hadn't seen her do before. I was torn. Was her plea genuine or just an act? She broke down while talking about her breakup, asking if she could move in with me again. I had to be firm. I couldn't support her after what she did to me. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying she'd be on the streets without me. I gave her some money for basic needs, but made it clear that was all I could do. I haven't forgiven her, and I don't think I can until I've moved on. It's been a month since I last saw her. Recently, my mom called, and I told her everything. She apologized for Diana's actions and said she was getting what she deserved. Diana is now working as a saleswoman, facing challenges from her boss. It's understandable. No one wants a lazy employee, right? As for me, I don't know when I'll fully move on, if ever. I appreciate any well wishes you can send my way. Story 2. Betrayal of marriage. I discovered my wife cheating with her boss's husband. Now I'm married to her ex-best friend. Let me rewind a bit. My wife, 27 years old, and I, 24 years old, first met at the Burning Man festival. At that time, I had just graduated from college and started working full-time in Nevada, while she lived and worked in Colorado. We hit it off right away, and I found myself falling for her quickly. We exchanged numbers and started talking nonstop as soon as the festival ended. She was the first to text me, even before I got to my car. We maintained a long-distance relationship for a year before she asked me to move in with her. I found a job in her state and packed my bags to be with her. Within another year, I bought a house and proposed to her. We had a small wedding ceremony with just a few family members, as neither of us had a large family. Our marriage felt perfect, just like I had always hoped for. I thought I had found the most amazing, compatible, and exciting woman. I felt like I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, and she expressed the same feelings for me. Before I moved in with her, she wasn't very neat, but she made a conscious effort to keep our home clean and organized. By the time we settled into our house, she had become an excellent homemaker and a wonderful wife. She also loved her job working for her best friend, Tiffany, who was also her boss. Tiffany and my wife had a strong friendship from college, and my wife helped Tiffany build her business. Because she was there from the beginning, my wife earned a good salary. Although I never met Tiffany, my wife and she would go out occasionally to relax after work, they said. About 4 years into our marriage, I noticed my wife was spending more time on her phone and being secretive about it. I didn't think much of it at the time because my wife was still loving and attentive as always, maybe even more so. On one ordinary Friday evening, she texted me that she was going out with Tiffany. I replied that I would meet my brother for dinner and see her at home by 9. I left the house to meet him, but he canceled our plans. I returned home and went straight to the bathroom before turning any lights on. While I was in there, I heard the front door open and 2 voices. I turned off the bathroom light and listened. I heard my wife giggle and open the back sliding door, then I heard a man's voice. I watched them from within the shadows of the house. They stripped off their clothes and jumped in the pool. They frolicked and splashed around for a bit before they started making out and having sex. I grabbed the man's pants, found his wallet, and took his ID. His last name sounded familiar. I got in my car and drove to his house. I knocked on the door and was greeted by a gorgeous woman. I handed her her husband's ID and told her what he was doing at my house with my wife. She didn't want to believe it at first, but as it sunk in, she became devastated. She started cursing and grabbing anything of his to throw out. She invited me to wait with her inside for him to return home. I didn't really want to, but I also didn't want to go home, so we waited. He came home, and his wife handed him his ID. He looked confused, especially when I stepped forward and explained how I found it in his wallet in his pants after he undressed with my wife. He was shocked, looking back and forth between us, feeling embarrassed and frustrated, wondering what would happen next. His wife kicked him out right then and there. I wanted to leave, but she asked me to stay amidst all the yelling. Once he left, she sat down with me and apologized for her husband and my wife's actions. We talked, and I soon realized she was Tiffany, my wife's best friend and boss. I was in shock and told her who my wife was. Tiffany couldn't believe it. She called my wife and asked her to come over immediately. When she arrived, we confronted her about cheating on me with Tiffany's husband. My wife cried, swearing she didn't know he was married. She begged me to believe it was a mistake, saying they met at a bar where he wasn't wearing a ring. I questioned why she was at a bar alone, but then I said it didn't matter. What mattered was she chose to be with another man in our home. Tiffany said my wife wasn't the kind of friend or employee she wanted in her life, even if she didn't know he was her husband. My wife was devastated. She pleaded, but it felt empty. I asked her to leave my house. Tiffany invited me back inside while my wife yelled and banged on the door. Eventually, my wife moved out, and we finalized the divorce. Even though my ex wasted a lot of my time, I'm grateful because I wouldn't have met my current wife, Tiffany, whom I've been married to for 12 years. Our exes didn't stay together. Their relationship was based on fleeting feelings, not real love.